Hey George,
Hey Erin, how's it going today?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
It's a beautiful morning. Very excited. We have a great topic for discussion today, so I'm very excited about today's convo.
Me too. Me too.
All right, guys. So yeah, today we'll be discussing mindfulness and mental health. It's something that you guys probably heard of. It's out there a lot now on social media. It's getting preached a lot. So, Erin, my question to you is what is mindfulness and how can you associate that to mental health?
Okay, great question. Um, so we've pulled a couple definitions just to give us a broad idea. Mindfulness is the practice of becoming more fully aware of the present moment. So non-judgment, and completely in the present moment, rather than dwelling in the past or projecting into the future. So it generally involves a heightened awareness of sensory stimuli, so like noticing your breathing, feeling sensations in your body, things like that, and being in quote in the now. A dictionary definition is the quality or state of being conscious or aware of something, and a mental state achieved by focusing one's awareness on the present moment while calmly acknowledging and accepting one's feelings, thoughts, and bodily sensations, used as a therapeutic technique. And then I'll offer just one more definition to be thorough. Mindfulness is the basic human ability to be fully present, aware of where we are and what we are doing, and not overly active or overwhelmed by what's going on around us. And so I think the long and the short of it is that there's this. It's a practice of connecting to yourself on a deeper level, but also like mindful. So the word mind is in there. We're trying to understand the mind, and mindfulness is rooted in Eastern and Buddhism philosophy, but it's not necessarily that you have to be practicing an Eastern philosophy or an Eastern religion in order to do this. So yeah, again, it's becoming aware of the mind. I think it's definitely a foreign concept in the West, or maybe less so now because of things like mindfulness. But the idea that like our mind and our thoughts are not us. Like there's a separate there's a separateness between our thought process and our ability to observe the thought process. And so mindfulness is a practice that helps us start to get in touch with that. Um, and so like that, I don't know if you've ever heard people talking about like being in the now, being fully present, like not dwelling in the past or future. Have you ever encountered that type of
Yeah,
thought?
no,
More new agey maybe.
definitely. Yeah, no, I think that's something that's big. I've heard it often, and I try to practice a bit of mindfulness as well. I've slowly adapted it into my way of thinking because I noticed that a lot of my anxieties were caused from preconceived like ideas of things I thought were going to happen. And then, I started realizing patterns that a lot of the things I was worrying about in the future never really came to fruition. It was never even like on the radar. So I started more and more to, not think too much about the present, try to about the future, be more in the present. But I had some thoughts or some questions for you in regards to that also because as much as I try to stay in the present and not think too much about the future, I think it's also very helpful, to plan for the future and kind of think things. So sometimes when I'm trying to practice mindfulness, I don't know if I'm doing it correctly or it's like, oh, should I not worry about the future? Should I plan for the future? Like, what's a good like balance to have in between the two of them?
I guess I'll kind of go back to the basics first, which is when we're practicing mindfulness, let's just say like a meditation. I think that's the way we can kind of picture it the easiest. So, for an example, maybe you're focusing on your breathing. So, you're sitting there and you're focusing on your breathing. And so, your breath is like a very present thing. If you're noticing your body breathing, you're tempted to not like drift into and the mind will want to do that. It'll want to go, it'll latch onto something. It'll go into the future, it'll go into the past. But the idea of being present is that we have access to like a deeper consciousness and a deeper understanding of ourselves. So, like if we think about mental chatter, we're thinking about like, if we're dwelling on something in the past, that we have no control over that yet. And if we're dwelling over something that might happen in the future, we have no control over that yet. We only really, really have control over the present moment. Um, and I think to your question, it's kind of a delicate act of um, plan, but you plan without a sense of worry or attachment, which is really hard. So you can have an idea, like for instance, like if you're going to set a goal, or if you're going to go to college, right? So you're planning for college. You have to plan for college. And I'm just kind of thinking of an example as we're talking here. Like, let's just say it's time to, you're going to be picking your classes for the fall. And so you can sit there and you can like look at every single class, and you should do this, right? Like look at every single class and then kind of pick your classes, but to go back and then be like, oh, but what if this class is full, and then but what if that class is full, and then what if this teacher's not offering that one? And so like there's a jump between like being in the moment and knowing that it's time to do something. So like if it's time to plan for my classes, and then next week I'm going to register. You plan for your classes and then you kind of leave it there. All that extra mental chatter um is not very helpful. And the more you practice mindfulness and presence, the more, and this is kind of a trust thing, but you start to trust yourself and you feel guided from one moment to the next. So you do like a fair amount of planning, but it's not like over planning. It's not overly worrying about what might or might not happen. It's setting a plan, and then when the moment comes, trusting yourself to be able to handle whatever comes your way in that moment.
Kind of what I'm hearing a bit. You let me know if I'm not understanding correctly, but it's good to live in the present and plan accordingly, but without expectations. Just more of the logistical planning. But as far as what's gonna come from it, what might result in that, all that stuff, kind of not have too many expectations and just wait for that moment to come.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because I think all of us can kind of relate to sitting and worrying about something, and in our mind going to every possible outcome and feeling like it's not really productive. Like the mind kind of compulsively wants to do that, but but there's like it becomes at some point a little useless to be excuse me, dwelling in what may or may not happen.
Yeah, yeah, no. So that's stuff that I find it, very helpful as I've tried to be more mindful in my life. But yeah, it is a bit of a struggle sometimes, and one thing I would also, say I would like to discuss that helps me, and you kind of mentioned it as well, is having trust, in yourself, or what's gonna happen. And I think for myself, that's one of the main things as well. I try to preach to people, or whenever I'm talking to someone and need some advice, is I feel like you need good foundational beliefs and understandings. And then some things that I use for that is, I look back at my past. So I don't like to look too much of the past or dwell, but I do like to look back and understand that those moments where I was very, very worried and I thought I was in the hole, I wasn't going to be able to come out of, 5, 10, 15 years later, that it's not even a thought in my head anymore. So I feel like people building a understanding and a trust within themselves, and just kind of, positivity, and I feel like that'll help guide people a little bit easier as well.
when when we learn to quiet down the mind, or not even quiet down, but just not pay it as much attention. So the more we become present, I'll say that we kind of get in touch with something, with ourselves in a different way. Like there's kind of an inherent knowing that we all have inside of us that can guide us. Um, and this like breaches on a spiritual thing, but and I guess that's why this is kind of rooted in Eastern philosophy and religion. But It's really just about connecting to yourself. And so as you do that, and that busy chatter kind of is no longer the predominant force in your consciousness, then you start to like have some realizations that come from a deeper place. So instead of like the chatter coming from worry, there's just like things that kind of pop up. And I'm even like as I'm doing this, I'm like touching my chest because it's kind of like a heart thing. Like things kind of pop up like from the heart. Um and when you practice this, I think people start to experientially they'll start to notice there is a bit of a difference. So like it's not that you become a blank slate, you know, it's not like you become like, you know, the line goes flat and there's just nothing happening. It's just that the way you start to think and act is coming from a different place. It's not coming from that place of dwelling in the past or worrying about the future. It's access to like that inherent knowing that we all have. And there's some sense of like peace and calmness and stability and trust, like I had mentioned earlier, in that place. And so sometimes that is like, you know, oh yeah, I need to, you know, like I need to pursue this thing, or I need, maybe it's, I don't know, it'll be different for everybody. I can't say what it'll be or what it won't be, but um you just, yeah, you just, it's just getting in touch with something a little deeper that's not again focused on that mental chatter that's very distracting or distressing.
You're kind of just touching base on mental chatter, and I wanted to see if you could touch base on that. Also, I know it's not directly related to mindfulness, but
Hmm.
what are your thoughts on where people get mental chatter from? Is that from their upbringing, the people that were raising them?
Hmm.
Was that something the person developed on their own, or is it like a combo of things?
Yeah, I mean, I really think it's a combination. Every person's personality is going to experience and internalize their experiences in life in a different way based on how their personality is hardwired. Um, but there is some conditioning that can come from the surroundings. So, you know, environment, people in your environment. And this kind of does get into like CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. Um, and actually, when we were reading about mindfulness, there's another type of therapy called dialectical behavioral therapy, DBT. And it's a combination of like mindfulness techniques with CBT. So you're not so far off by like starting to link all of these things together. Um, but when looking at the mind in the framework of cognitive behavioral therapy, um, the one of the foundational principles is the idea that our mind has like thoughts that we just they call automatic thoughts, thoughts we automatically think. So like the record that's just kind of on repeat, just the habitual narratives that we carry. Um, and another foundational principle of CBT is core beliefs. So we might have a lot of mental chatter, and as we kind of dig into that a little bit more and see, you know, where is this all coming from, we'll boil it down to a core belief that a person might have, which this is usually a little more unconscious. It's like it's like a song playing in the background, but you don't quite hear it. You're not quite aware that it's playing. So you want to like identify what that song is. So you can maybe change it to something better. So yes, and I think mindfulness can help a person understand what their thought patterns are, especially if they're trying to take a step back and observe their thoughts. Because we're so quick to identify with what we're thinking, right? So, like, our mind is just ping ponging thoughts all the time. Um, and if you notice that, like, there's certain ones that we choose, we don't realize we're doing it, but there's certain ones that we choose to hold on to have feelings about, and to identify with. And then they kind of become like part of us. And mindfulness is like, let's tease that apart and let's do that more consciously. Let's pick thoughts to identify with that are helpful, and let's try to, you know, give less attention to the less helpful ones. um and and this is making me think also about I had been reading an article about when maybe mindfulness not that it's harmful, but could be a less than positive experience. And I think, if people do have trauma, or a painful experience in the past, our mind works very hard to compensate for pains that we've experienced, um, and kind of like, we'll go into survival mode if we've been through something painful or traumatic. And sometimes as we become more aware of ourselves, particularly like in our bodies, quieting some of that chatter, we might start to feel some of that pain coming up, and that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it can be painful.
Yeah,
um,
right. I can imagine because I'm not too clinical, right, as you, Aaron, but I feel like when those emotions start coming out, those thoughts, those
mhm.
memories, you just haven't dealt with them in a while, so
Right.
it might be difficult, but if you can overcome it and learn to process, I feel like that would probably be the best route.
Well, exactly, exactly, and that's why something like DBT, this combination of mindfulness and cognitive behavioral therapy, can be very helpful because a lot of times and this is, yeah, getting more into like the mental health side, but when someone has something painful, a painful experience in their life, a traumatic experience in their life, um, they don't know how to cope with these big emotions. That's why, we compensate with other behaviors and things like that. So um, it can be very healing and helpful to learn how to deal with these very strong feelings and emotions that you have, that are normal, that are totally valid. But for whatever reason, we're afraid to feel them, or it just feels too intense and painful to feel them. But we can learn skills to help move through all of that. And so that's kind of where the therapy component can tie itself into a mindfulness practice.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I want to share like some of like things that I've learned about myself and mindfulness, and I
Hmm.
feel like it's helped me greatly, right? So I noticed I was whenever I get a little bit, not a little bit, when I have a lot on my plate or I'm dealing with extra anxiety in a certain time frame in my life,
Hmm.
extra tasks, family, work, relationships, etc. I found myself getting into a pattern of lashing out to people, right? And then I noticed this was a pattern, and I think for myself I was doing that so I could separate myself from situations, right? So I maybe didn't healthily know how to state or separate in a productive way. So I would lash out to certain people, creating certain conflicts, certain tensions, naturally creating separation. And I think what I needed at that point was a little bit of separation, but the way I was going about it was really unhealthy, for myself, people around me, etc. So I started to realize that if I ever have a lot of anxiety or I'm overwhelmed, I'm gonna have a tendency to lash out more. So at those moments, I try to separate myself beforehand. Try to take a walk, just breathe and live in the moment. Because many times, when you're heated or you're thinking of something, that's all it's just burning in your brain. And sometimes you just look outside, it's beautiful. The sky is huge. There's clouds everywhere. Like it goes from this country to another country. So you could just look and really appreciate the beautiful colors, the wind, the breeze. And I've noticed for myself that has truly, truly helped me in my life. So, if anybody's listening and they have similar kind of patterns they might have noticed, and they come in all different shapes and sizes. This is just
Hmm.
my particular pattern that I noticed. So hopefully if someone's dealing with certain similar things, you can try some of these techniques as well.
Yeah, that's I really like, thank you for sharing that, because it's making me think also that grounding, like one thing mindfulness can help you do is ground, and like pulling your mind and yourself back into the moment is very grounding. So like if you're having a lot of big feelings and you're not, um you're trying to handle it, grounding and bringing yourself into the moment, like you said, noticing, what am I seeing around me, sensory, what am I seeing around me, what am I smelling, what am I feeling on my skin, like how does my body feel, all of that stuff just kind of like pulls you right back into the moment. And then it, like you said, it can give you a little bit of separation, like maybe I don't become as reactive as I would have been if I wasn't able to pull myself back into the moment and just like ground myself and decide how I want to move forward.
And something else that I also wanted to see your thoughts on, or if you have any connections you can build, is I often also think that many of the things that the way we act and the way we are is because a lot of it is perhaps like evolution as well. Like, this is thousands and thousands of years of people evolving, and early humans were more, I would say, reactionary. Like, oh, there's that, I
Mm-hmm.
gotta fight him, I'm hungry,
Mm-hmm.
it's cold. So they were always just reacting. So I feel like a lot of us have a lot of our early ancestors kind of genes, DNA, and I don't know if this is accurate. It's a bunch of
Wow.
stuff I've seen on YouTube, but
No, that's actually making me think of some philosophy that I'm familiar with, which is it kind of speaks to the idea that of what is the difference between animals and humans. And one of the big things is this ability to have discretion and make decisions. So um, and then the idea that humans, obviously, I guess we can see this around us, are meant for a little bit more than what animals are capable of, because of this ability to have increased awareness, consciousness, and this discretion. This, obviously we can communicate through language, and we're very complex, but you know, um, yeah, I've heard, animalistic tendency is eating, sleeping, mating, and defending. So, you know, and so obviously we're animals as well, so we have that tendency. Um, but we're also meant for more than that. And so something like mindfulness can help us start to get in touch with what that is, whatever that will be, something a little bit higher, something a little bit deeper, than just being reactionary and survival oriented.
yeah, yeah, and I think it's helpful to know that because I feel like the more information in regards to the topic, you can start building your own idea of what mindfulness is, how to be mindful. I think just incorporating some of the history, like past trends and things, it can help people formulate their own idea for the future.
Mhm.
So, yeah. So, Erin, what are things that you do for mindfulness? I know you're big on meditation,
Mhm.
and breathing techniques, etc. Is there any other things, or do you want to deep dive a little bit more into those particular things?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, meditation is certainly one. So and I yoga. So I have a yoga training certification, and I love doing yoga, like just physical practice, which is very meditative. And along with that which comes breathing and pranayama, so learning how to breathe. All of that stuff helps pull you into the moment. And I also do some mantra meditation, so like chanting mantras, where you focus on the sound vibration. So um, yeah, all of those things have helped guide my life for the last 13 years, I guess I would say, as I've dabbled in all of that. And um, I mean, for one, it's you get connected to the connection to something greater. I think is just unavoidable. Whether you're feeling connected to just nature, whether you're feeling connected to the collective, consciousness of people, or something just beyond this world. It's important, and in mental health, we do emphasize some spirituality, and spirituality is just, I mean, at its minimum, a connection to something bigger than myself. And I think that helps on so many levels. Like, one, just a personal journey, like knowing yourself, knowing what you need, um, helping yourself heal and work through different feelings, emotions, traumas, things like that. Um, and then also just generating like a greater sense of connectivity and peace, like, offering something to connect to when things are going wrong. Like the world, there's so many things happening in current events that can be very distressing. And um, being rooted in something that feels greater than yeah, the day-to-day things that happen to us, it really helps not feel too much in despair when things are kind of seem to be crumbling around us.
Awesome, awesome. Yeah, no, that's great info. Great. This is a great topic. I hope everybody has some time to really research the project. Hopefully you got a little good tidbits, some good direction during today's show so you can start exploring yourself, because I know from Aaron's perspective, from my perspective, we are both really mindful people. We understand how important it could be, and I feel like we both seen how it can change our lives as well for better. So really advocate for everybody to, start looking into it. It might not be for you, but if you do some research, you'll definitely, and you do some techniques, you try it out, you'll definitely be surprised at the results for sure.
Yeah, and there's different ways too. Like, I think that's something to note. Like, you don't just have to sit there and meditate. Like, there's so many different ways to like bring mindfulness into your life. So, like George is saying, so if you don't want to sit there and meditate, maybe there's another way that you can incorporate some mindfulness and get some good benefits from it.
Perfect, perfect. All right, Aaron, any closing statements, last remarks?
I think my takeaway, and you just kind of mentioned it, is that the practice of mindfulness can be really life changing. And I think that cannot be overstated, how much it can make a difference in someone's life.
But you guys heard it here first. Go practice some mindfulness, watch some videos, read some books, and if you guys have any comments, you could comment with some of your techniques as well.
All right, thank you, George.
All right, Aaron, have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, you too.